My name is Harper Rhodes, and I used to believe if I tried hard enough, if I showed up enough, helped enough, stayed quiet enough, then I'd earn my place at the table. Not a head seat, just a chair, somewhere near the edge, maybe by the coat rack, but a place, somewhere. I was wrong. The last time I attended a family event, it was my cousin Rachel's engagement party. Her mom, Aunt Denise, handed out tiny glass flutes of champagne and kept correcting people who said, "So happy for you two," like the fiancé didn't matter. "It's Rachel's night," she kept saying. I stood near the kitchen, holding a Target gift bag while people snapped photos by the arch of white balloons. No one asked me to join in, not even when they did the big Matthews family group photo. My uncle waved me out of the shot. "Just family," he said, then paused. "Oh, sorry, of course, you can stand in the back if you want." I didn't. I set the gift on the table, texted Rachel congratulations, and left before dessert. They didn't notice I was gone until someone needed help cleaning up the next morning. A week later, the family group chat vanished my phone. I thought it was a bug. I restarted my phone, reinstalled WhatsApp, tried joining through an old backup. Nothing. When I asked my sister Lily if she saw me in it, she waited a whole hour before replying. "Mom said it's easier this way. Less drama." That word, drama. It's what they always called it when I disagreed, or asked a second question, or declined to make a last-minute dish because they forgot to include me in the head count. When I was 17, it was drama that I didn't want to give up my room every holiday for out-of-town cousins while I slept on the couch. When I was 23, it was drama that I couldn't take unpaid time off for Grandma's birthday weekend in the Poconos. And when I turned 26, the group message said, "Family ski trip with 30 pictures of cabins and rented SUVs. I replied once, just once. "Hey, did you mean to leave me out of this one too, or is there another group chat for black sheep only?" No one answered, but my sister called me 5 hours later. "Mom's upset," she said flatly. I stared at the phone. Because I noticed I wasn't invited? Lily sighed like I was the one making it difficult. "She just doesn't know where you fit anymore." That line stayed with me. It wasn't even said to hurt me. That was the worst part. It was just true to them. Obvious. I didn't fit anymore. Not since I moved out and didn't boomerang back like the others. Not since I stopped coming to every graduation, every engagement, every gender reveal. Not since I brought a partner home one Christmas, and they made the entire visit about how quiet he was, like they expected me to date someone with a karaoke machine for a personality. He left the next morning. I left 2 hours after him. No one called to ask why, so I stopped asking. No more texts like, "Hey, are we still doing Thanksgiving together?" No more sending birthday cards and wondering if they'd even remember mine. No more last-minute invites in case someone cancels. I didn't rage or cry. I just let the silence grow where the invitations used to be. And the silence was efficient. It knew how to fill a room. 9 years passed like that. Until one day, on an otherwise normal Wednesday, I got a booking request on my Airbnb app. 5 nights, full house, 7 guests. The message read, "Family reunion for the Rhodes and Matthews families so excited to gather in our hometown again." The name on the request? Elaine M., my aunt. The one who used to say things like, "We love Harper, she's just different," right in front of me. I stared at the screen for a long time, my coffee going cold beside me. They didn't know. They didn't know it was my house. And I didn't tell them, because 9 years ago, they told me not to ask again. So I didn't. Now they were knocking, and I was the one with the key. I never made a speech about leaving. There was no dramatic scene, no slammed door, no "you'll regret this." That's the thing about slow exclusion. It doesn't come with a moment. It's a blur. 1,000 paper cuts that you finally stop feeling. I didn't stop loving my family. I just stopped bleeding for them. At first, I filled the silence with busy things. Overcommitting at work. Taking night classes I didn't need. Baking muffins at 1 a.m. just to feel like I was preparing for something. It didn't matter what. Just something that might make someone proud one day, even if that someone wasn't them. My job at the tech startup started as a receptionist role. Answer phones, organize the fridge, say hi with energy even when you were dying inside. It didn't pay much, but it was the first place where I didn't feel like an afterthought. 3 months in, I overheard the founder struggling with a logistics spreadsheet and offered to clean it up. He blinked at me like I'd grown a second head. "You know Excel?" I nodded. The next day, he asked if I could build a dashboard. I did. By the end of that year, I had a different desk, a different title, and a little corner of the room where people actually waited to hear what I had to say. I didn't brag about it, didn't post on LinkedIn. I just kept working. And when our product took off 2 years later, and they offered early employees a modest stock option buyout, I signed the papers with steady hands. I didn't become rich overnight, but I had enough to breathe, enough to not panic when rent was due, enough to finally stop saying yes to things I hated just to prove I was agreeable. I moved cities, quietly. I didn't text anyone. I didn't announce it, just updated my billing addresses and went. Boston was kind to me, not in a showy way, in the way that the barista remembers your order after 2 weeks, in the way that no one knows your last name but still says good morning when you walk your dog, in the way the streets feel neutral, not haunted. Therapy helped, more than I like to admit. The first session, I cried without knowing why. The therapist didn't interrupt. She waited until I was ready, then said, "You do realize you're allowed to stop auditioning for your own family, right?" That line stayed with me, like a secret, like a key. When I turned 30, I bought my first property. A small 2-bedroom in the city outskirts, rough around the edges, but sturdy. It smelled like paint and dust and potential. I didn't buy it to live in. I bought it because I needed something of my own, something I built without permission. I renovated it over 6 months, nights and weekends, tiling floors while podcasts played in the background, painting baseboards in clothes I didn't care about, installing light fixtures even though I was afraid of shocking myself every time I touched a wire. When I listed it on Airbnb, I set the profile photo as the exterior clean but not glamorous. Description: quiet, modern, close to city center, thoughtfully renovated. That part made me smile. Guests liked it, families, remote workers, traveling nurses. It was always booked. One woman left a review that said, "This house felt like it wanted me to rest. Thank you, that one made me cry." So I bought a second place, then a third. Not all at once, slowly, one door at a time. I became the kind of landlord I used to daydream about. Transparent, fair, communicative. I charged enough to stay afloat, but not enough to make anyone's life harder. The first house, though the one I scraped and scrubbed and made mine, it always felt different, like it carried my shape, my story. It wasn't just a listing, it was a letter. And when it wasn't booked, I'd go there just to sit, to run my fingers along the kitchen counters I installed myself, to water the succulents in the living room and feel the sun on my back from the window I'd enlarged with my own budget and planning. Sometimes I'd read the guest book. People left notes. Some funny, some strange. One just said, "I needed this." I didn't know what they meant. I didn't need to. Not once did I think about my family booking it. It wasn't a fantasy I played with. I'd stopped giving them that much space in my head. They hadn't messaged in almost a decade, not for birthdays, not for holidays, not when I got into local papers for building affordable short-term housing solutions, not when I made it onto a 30 under 30 neighborhood entrepreneur list for the city's small business grant newsletter. Nothing. Lily texted me once, 2 years ago. "Hope you're good. Mom saw something with your name in the paper. You've always been stubborn but smart. Stay safe." I never replied. Not out of anger, just balance. So when the Airbnb notification pinged at 9:47 a.m. on a Wednesday, I assumed it was another standard request. I opened the app, looking forward to a much-needed family reunion. It's been years. Love the photos. So cozy. Attached. Reservation for 5 nights. 7 guests. Under the name Elaine M. The surname hit me like a memory. The tone chipper, distant, was unmistakably hers. I stared at it, confused. Checked the address 3 times. Checked the guest list notes, scanned for other names. That's when I saw it. Guests: Elaine M., Thomas M., Lily R., Rachel and Denise R., Uncle Caleb and one child, Jamie. All of them. Booking my house. I didn't decline the request. I didn't message back. I just let the silence breathe just like they had. I clicked accept and sat very, very still. Not with rage, not with satisfaction, just with the quiet understanding that after all this time, they still didn't know me, but now they were about to walk through a front door I had built with my own hands, and this time, I wasn't asking to be let in. They were. The booking was set for Friday afternoon. 5 nights, 7 guests, 2 cars expected. The system auto-sent my usual welcome packet check-in code, neighborhood suggestions, house manual. I almost stopped it. Almost. But I didn't. I sat with it, watched their names reappear in my life like echoes walking back through a hallway I'd sealed shut. I'd forgotten how Elaine signed her messages with exclamation marks, how she talked in full sentences even when it wasn't necessary, always curating, always controlling. I didn't recognize the name Jamie at first. Then I remembered Rachel had a baby right before I moved. I never saw him. They posted pictures on Facebook for a few months, then switched to Instagram. I was blocked from both before his first birthday. The system allows hosts to communicate directly with guests. I could have said something, a short note, a reveal, a warning. Instead, I clicked Archive Conversation. I didn't need to hear from them. I needed the house to speak for me. The week before their arrival, I visited the property. I told myself it was just a standard walkthrough. Check the locks, fluff the pillows, refill the coffee bar. But I brought more than cleaning gloves and Febreze. I brought a box from my own apartment, one I hadn't opened in years. Inside were fragments, a photo from high school Lily and me sitting on the hood of Dad's old car before things cracked open, a brochure from my startup's early days with my name printed under lead product designer, a letter from my first tenant, handwritten in messy, grateful ink. You gave me a place to land after losing everything. I didn't plan on staging the house with these. But when I walked through the front door, I changed my mind. It was muscle memory, not spite. I placed the photo on the second floor hallway table subtle, tucked beside a plant. If you didn't look closely, it could have been generic, but Lily would know. She'd remember the sunburn on my arm, the crooked hem of her old camp shirt. No one else would, but she would. I put the tenant's letter in the kitchen drawer where I usually kept takeout menus. No frame, just folded, deliberate. Then I opened the Wi-Fi settings. The current password was Sunlight 2023. I changed it to Harper Roads. No caps, no spaces, just my name. The name they'd stopped saying out loud. I kept the rest simple. The house didn't need banners or flashing lights. It needed stillness, confidence. In the guest room, I swapped the default landscape print for one of my own photographs. A shot I'd taken in Lisbon, a narrow alley lit with warm dusk, leading nowhere and everywhere. I printed it years ago for myself, for a wall no one ever saw. Now they'd see it. On the console table in the living room, I placed a stack of local magazines, artfully fanned out. The second one down had a feature titled, The Quiet Builders, Women Shaping the City. Page 18 held my face, half smiling beside a caption. Harper Rhodes, founder of Haven Properties, believes housing should feel like an apology you don't have to ask for. I didn't flip it to that page. I didn't need to. They'd flip it themselves. In the fridge, I stocked Pellegrino, oat milk, sliced oranges. Everything Elaine used to buy for herself, carefully labeled "Do Not Touch" when we shared kitchens at holiday rentals. Beside the snacks on the counter, I left a sealed envelope that read, "For the guests." Inside was a printed welcome letter, just the usual. "Thank you for staying. Please remove shoes in the entryway. Quiet hours after 10 p.m. Wi-Fi, Harper Roads password. You found me 2023. Nothing more." I walked through the house one last time. It looked clean. Software lived in, but not forced. Like it belonged to someone who didn't need to prove anything anymore. I closed the door behind me. Didn't look back. That Friday, I didn't work. Didn't check emails. I turned off all notifications except the Airbnb app. At 3:17 p.m., the motion sensor blinked. Front door opened. At 3:22 p.m., a message came through the platform. "Hi, just arrived. Everything looks wonderful. Thank you. Elaine M." I didn't reply. I watched the green dot stay lit for several hours, then disappear. That night, I lay in bed, eyes open, picturing them inside my walls. Rachel with her curated laughs and curated baby. Denise probably critiquing the minimalist decor as if it were a threat. Uncle Caleb wondering why there wasn't cable. And Lily. I didn't know what Lily would feel. That part kept me up. I thought about the kid Jamie, 7 now, maybe 8, sleeping in my old room. If they'd assigned the rooms the way they used to. If so, he was under the glow-in-the-dark stars I'd painted over but never fully erased. You could still see the outlines if you turned off the lights. I hoped he saw them. I didn't go near the house that weekend. I didn't check the cameras either, even though I could have. They were there for safety, for liability. But I didn't want to see them on my screen. I wanted them to meet me on their own, not in person, in presence. The house would speak where I never could. I've always believed houses hold memory. Not the haunted kind. Not the whisper-through-walls kind. The quiet kind. The kind where every doorknob you replace and light bulb you tighten is a conversation between who you were and who you're trying to become. So I prepared the house like it was telling a story. Not for revenge, for clarity. The first sign was the entryway. 3 pairs of guest slippers lined up beside the bench. I always left them there. But this time I added a 4th pair. Mine. The exact brand Elaine used to scold me for buying when I was 19. Why would you waste good money on things for your feet when you can't even keep your life together? I placed them neatly, facing inward. In the living room, I left the bookshelf untouched except for the middle row. One title placed backward, spine in. Just one. Belonging. Notes on reclaiming self, when family refuses to see you. I didn't mark it. Didn't highlight anything. But if someone pulled it out, the pages would fall open where I'd left the spine cracked. Page 147. You don't need the table if you've already learned how to build the floor beneath it. In the kitchen drawer where I usually kept the keys and appliance manuals, I added a small notebook, my first journal from when I bought the house. I flipped to a random page, left it slightly open. The date said October 4th, 2018. Scraped the wallpaper with my fingers until my knuckles split. painted over the silence with 2 coats of morning fog. Elaine would have called it cold. I call it mine. I removed nothing, just placed it there. The second bedroom, the one I used to imagine as a future office, was where I left the framed photograph. Lisbon Alley, dusky light. I leaned it against the windowsill instead of hanging it, framed but unmounted, like something still deciding where it belonged. I cleared out the fridge and stocked it with intention. Top shelf, San Pellegrino, oat milk, citrus-infused sparkling water. Elaine's favorites. Once she made an entire Thanksgiving shopping list with brands assigned. I asked if I could bring sweet potato casserole. She paused and said, "Why don't you just bring ice?" I brought nothing that year, but this year I brought her everything. The freezer had a pint of the same lavender honey ice cream Rachel used to hide from me in the back of the family freezer. The kind she once said was, "A little too adult for your taste, Harper." It sat alone on the middle rack. In the bathroom, I left a fresh candle. Scent, vetiver, and smoke. The label read, "For homes that were once ash." I'd ordered it from a small maker in Portland. I didn't expect them to notice it, but if they lit it, I hoped it lingered. I changed the guest Wi-Fi password a second time, one day before check-in. Harper Rhodes, you found me 2023. It was subtle, not arrogant, just factual. They'd need it to stream anything, to post their filtered group photos, to check weather, to book their rides back to the airport. My name, my year, that was the access point. I didn't frame my degrees. I never had. But I slid one into the drawer of the nightstand in the primary bedroom, folded, not flaunted. The top corner read, BS, Architecture and Sustainable Design. Magna cum laude Harper L. Rhodes. The L stood for Lily, a middle name I never used out loud. The rest of the house was clean, software neutral, except for the guest book. Normally I kept it on the coffee table, something to collect polite notes. Lovely place, or thanks for the comfy bed. This time, I tucked it in the drawer beneath the TV remote. I added a single page in the middle, not at the front, not at the back, dead center. You told me not to ask anymore, so I didn't. I built a place where asking wasn't necessary. No signature, just date stamped 9 years later. I imagined them finding it the way people find things they weren't meant to accidentally, and then having to decide whether to pretend they hadn't. I didn't need to confront them. I didn't need a monologue. I needed the architecture to whisper what I couldn't say without cracking. That was always the difference between us. They needed the photo ops, the raised voices, the narratives where someone storms off so everyone else can talk about how tense she's always been. I needed none of that. Just light, wood, paper, walls. Everything else, anger, validation, apology, was extra. They didn't need to know they were sleeping in a house I paid for, with nights I didn't sleep, with wounds I didn't name, with hours no one applauded. They just needed to be there, in it, inside the life they said I couldn't build. The house has a way of absorbing sound. That's what most guests say in the reviews. Quiet, peaceful, insulated somehow. I designed it that way, double-glazed windows, soft rugs, minimal echo. I always said it was for privacy. But the truth was, I needed the silence to be intentional. I needed it to feel earned. They arrived Friday. The app pinged me at 3:17 p.m. Front door unlocked, guest check-in. Confirmed, Elaine M. I didn't open the app again. I didn't need to watch them. I knew how it would go. The first thing they'd notice would be the smell. Always lavender, eucalyptus, and clean linen from the plug-ins tucked subtly near the floorboards. Elaine once told me my childhood bedroom smelled like overthinking. I don't know what that meant, but I remember her lighting candles before guests came over, saying scent was the first impression people couldn't name. Now this house made a first impression too. Madison would have been the first to comment. Cute, probably. Or maybe minimalist, in that condescending way people use when they can't find fault but still want to. She would have walked through the living room quickly, scanning for flaws. Her mom, Denise, would follow behind, wiping surfaces with her sleeve even though the house was spotless. Rachel, holding her son Jamie's hand, would trail them all, half apologizing for the mess no one had made yet. Uncle Caleb would ask where the remote was. Always did. And Lily, she'd hang back. She was always last through the door. It wouldn't take long before something shifted. Maybe it was the photo on the hallway table, the one of Lily and me, sun-dazed and smirking on the hood of Dad's car, faded just enough to blend in, framed plainly. Or maybe it was the Wi-Fi. They'd open their phones, try to log in, and there it would be. Network, Harper Rhodes. Password, you found me 2023. Someone would laugh, soft, disbelieving. Maybe Denise. Coincidence? Or they'd say what people say when their stomachs twist. That's odd. Jamie would run through the house, unaware. That part made me feel something. Not regret exactly, just ache. He didn't know the rules they played by yet. He didn't know what it meant to be forgotten on purpose. I imagined Lily finding the framed Lisbon photo in the guest room. She used to have a poster of that alley taped above her desk in high school. Said it looked like the kind of place people disappear into when they're finally ready to be themselves. She'd pause at the window, hold the frame for a second too long, and say nothing. That's how it would start. Not with recognition, but with discomfort. A tension that settles behind the ribs. They'd start looking for clues. Not openly, quietly. The way people do when they're trying not to believe something that feels true. Elaine would wander into the kitchen and open the fridge. Her eyes would skim the Pellegrino, the oat milk, the citrus water, the same things she used to hide in the back of the family fridge with her name scribbled in Sharpie on the cap. "No one touch this," she used to say. "We're not made of money." She once yelled at me for finishing her cashew yogurt after a dinner party. I'd been 16. I hadn't eaten all day. Now it sat at eye level, 4 containers, unopened. She'd close the door quietly. In the primary bedroom, Rachel would unpack Jamie's things, tuck them into the closet. She might notice the diploma in the drawer when she reached for extra hangers. She might not. Lily would notice. She always opened drawers she wasn't supposed to, not out of malice, out of habit. She said silence made her itch. When she found it folded, crisp, bearing my full name, she wouldn't say anything at first. She'd carry it out of the room like it might burn the linens. Someone would flip through the magazines on the console. Eventually, they'd find the article. The Quiet Builders, Women Shaping the City. Page 18. My face. Smiling, but barely. The kind of smile you practice in mirrors, and then forget how to do naturally. They'd pass the magazine around without speaking, or they'd pretend not to notice. That was the family sport, pretend, until everyone agreed it didn't happen. At some point, someone would need the guest book. It wasn't where it usually was. They'd find it in the drawer under the remote, rifling through for batteries or instructions or something to distract from the air tightening in the room. And there it would be, middle of the book, not at the front, not at the back. You told me not to ask anymore, so I didn't. I built a place where asking wasn't necessary. No signature, just a date. Jamie would be the only one to say anything with honesty. He'd tug at Rachel's arm, point at the photo in the hallway, and ask the question no one else wanted to hear. Is that Aunt Harper? And the room would pause. Because it would be. Because they knew. Because they had walked into the very space they told me I'd never have. And now they were breathing the air I had cultivated with my absence. The ice cream in the freezer would remain untouched. The vetiver candle would flicker in the bathroom while no one dared light it. And the house would go still. Not empty. Just aware. People don't admit the truth all at once. They circle it, stare just past it, talk around it like it's a closed room in a house they refuse to enter. Denise was the first to speak. "This place has good taste," she said Saturday morning, buttering toast like she was being watched. "Almost reminds me of Harper's style. Minimalist. Too minimalist, maybe." Elaine didn't look up from her tea. "Harper never had time for interiors, always so practical." Lily blinked slowly, said nothing. She was sitting by the window flipping through the guest book again, though she hadn't turned the page in 20 minutes. Rachel hovered near the kitchen counter, scrolling her phone. Her face had that distant tightness like she was trying to match names to memories she'd erased. "No reviews mention a host," she said finally, her voice light but careful. "No photos. And this house? It feels too personal for a rental." Caleb grunted. "What does that mean?" She hesitated, then pointed toward the Lisbon Alley photo. "That's Harper's. She took that in Portugal, didn't she?" "I remember. She emailed it out once with some quote." Elaine laughed nervously. "I doubt it's the same photo, Rachel. That's a stock image. People use those." "No." Lily's voice was steady. "She didn't buy that one. She took it. I remember." A pause. Then Caleb changed the subject. "Did anyone find the thermostat manual? It's freezing in here." Discomfort moved like fog. Slow, dense, hard to name. They spent the day the way families do when something unsaid starts to rot in the middle of the room. They stayed busy. Elaine cleaned surfaces that didn't need cleaning. Denise reorganized drawers she had no business touching. Caleb napped in the armchair with his hat pulled low. Rachel took Jamie out for a walk. Lily stayed quiet. By Sunday morning it had settled into a rhythm. No one said the word Harper, but everyone said things like, "Strange house, odd design choices." Very intentional, isn't it? Rachel found the diploma late that night, folded in the nightstand drawer. She brought it to Elaine in the kitchen and laid it down like evidence. Elaine stared at it a full 30 seconds before saying, "Lots of people are named Harper." "Not with our last name," Rachel replied quietly. Elaine pushed the paper away. "If it's hers, then maybe she just manages the listing. Maybe she sublets it. Doesn't mean she owns it." Lily turned from the sink. You think Harper rents out a house with her name on the Wi-Fi and her photo in the hallway just for fun? She was always dramatic. No, Lily said. You were. Silence, sharp enough to bite. Denise cleared her throat. Even if this is Harper's, why wouldn't she say something? Why wouldn't she show up? Because I don't need to, Lily thought but didn't say. They all moved slower the next morning. Rachel made breakfast without speaking. Denise declined coffee. Elaine spent an hour on the porch with her laptop open but untouched. They didn't know how to leave, because they didn't know how to stay. I imagined Lily going through the bookshelf again, this time pulling out the reversed spine, reading the quote and saying nothing. I imagined her fingers brushing the candle label in the bathroom. For homes that were once ash, that one was for her. I imagined her pocketing the tenant letter in the kitchen drawer, because Lily always took the smallest, heaviest things with her when she left. Jamie asked if he could draw something in the guest book. Rachel hesitated, then nodded. He flipped to the last used page where my message sat like a quiet bruise. He didn't read it. He just turned the page and drew a big sun with 7 stick figures under it, labeled them in crooked block letters. Mom, Sir Jamie, Aunt E, Aunt D, Uncle C, Grandma. Other lady. Rachel frowned. What lady? Jamie shrugged. The quiet one. She smiled at me in the hallway. Rachel didn't ask more. She just closed the book and tucked it back in the drawer. That night, Elaine reheated leftover pasta. No one ate much. I don't understand, she said softly. We never did anything cruel. Not really. Denise nodded. Harper was always so sensitive. Too sensitive, Elaine agreed. We tried our best. You can't make everyone feel included all the time. It was just easier without her, Denise added too quickly. And there it was, the confession, the sentence they'd all practiced without knowing. It was easier without her. It was easier to let one person carry the discomfort of the entire room, to call it drama, to treat silence like resolution. They'd pruned me from the family tree like a branch that grew at the wrong angle and then wondered why the house had drafts. By Monday, no one was speaking much. Elaine walked the backyard loop 6 times. Denise stayed upstairs all day. Caleb drove to a hardware store for something no one asked for. Rachel left with Jamie for the library and stayed gone for hours. Lily sat on the porch steps with a pen in her hand and nothing to write on. They were unraveling, not because they'd found me, but because they couldn't deny it any. I didn't hide. They just hadn't known where to look. By Tuesday, the house stopped pretending. The fridge still hummed. The walls still held their silence. But something had shifted subtly, like how a tide turns long before you notice the water's gone. Elaine started closing doors more quietly. Rachel stopped asking questions. Denise stopped folding towels she hadn't unfolded. But Lily? Lily started staying up late. She sat in the living room after everyone had gone to bed, lights off, blanket draped across her lap, feet pulled up onto the couch like she was waiting for someone, maybe me, herself. At 2:12 a.m., the system pinged. Living room motion detect. I didn't look at the feed. I just stared at the dot and whispered, I know. She'd never been the loud one, but she was always the one who noticed things. At breakfast, she placed the Lisbon photo upright on the dining table. Nobody acknowledged it. At lunch, she rearranged the bookshelf, spine out on every volume. Nobody asked why. After dinner, she walked to the guest book drawer, flipped it open, and left a note. This is the kind of silence I always wished we'd learn to live in. That night, Rachel knocked on her door. I don't know how the conversation started, but I know how it must have gone. Because Rachel always spoke with qualifiers. I didn't mean it that way, and you know how Mom gets. And it wasn't about you, it was just easier. And Lily didn't respond with heat. She never did. She responded with weight, with pauses, with the kind of truth that didn't need elevation to land. You all pretended she didn't exist, Lily would have said. And I went along with it, because it was easier. Rachel probably nodded. Tears, regret, but never ownership, because regret is what people reach for when accountability is too expensive. That evening, Elaine cooked dinner and said my name out loud. Harper would have liked this kitchen, number 1 replied. She didn't say it again. The house had made them smaller, not out of malice, out of honesty. They didn't belong in the life they erased, and the life hadn't collapsed without them. That was the real wound, not that I had disappeared, that I had survived the disappearance, that I had learned to thrive without checking if they were watching. Elaine hovered in the kitchen after everyone left the table. I imagined her staring at the folded towel beside the sink, the one with the initials HLR stitched faintly in the corner. A gift I gave her when I was 21. She never used it. Said monogrammed towels were tacky. Now it was the first she wiped her hands on. Denise sat on the porch most nights, but she no longer brought her book. Just stared at the garden beds she used to lecture me about maintaining. You don't plant lavender next to rosemary. They fight for soil. But the plants I chose had flourished. They didn't need her rules. They needed room. Lily found the second journal Wednesday morning. It wasn't hidden, just shelved between two cookbooks, a small, leather-bound notebook I'd filled during the early years. The ink was smudged in places. She sat with it for over an hour. Didn't speak, didn't read out loud, just absorbed. Jamie brought me into the room the way only children can with simplicity. He walked in, holding the framed Lisbon photo, and asked, "Why is Aunt Harper not at the reunion?" Number one answered. So he asked again, to Elaine, to Denise, to Rachel, and then to Lily. Lily looked him in the eyes and said, "Because sometimes families forget what love is supposed to look like." "Can we go visit her?" he asked. Elaine froze. Rachel whispered his name like a warning, but Lily just smiled, small, broken, brave. "Maybe one day," she said, "if she lets us." That night she left the house, not storming out, not slamming doors, just gone. Took her bag, her coat, her phone, and the Lisbon photo. The guestbook entry remained, but her room was stripped of everything else. Elaine found the Wi-Fi changed again. Network, Harper Roads. Password, you knew before you entered. She didn't tell the others. Just sat on the edge of the couch and stared at nothing. Rachel went into the backyard. Denise went upstairs. Caleb didn't return from the grocery run until nearly 11 p.m. They were unraveling without chaos, like threads pulled loose by time, not fury. Because that's how most families end, not with war, with forgetting who they used to be and then discovering someone remembered. Someone rebuilt the house they tried to tear down, and invited them in not with words, but with proof. Thursday morning arrived like a soft exhale. Gray sky, mist on the lawn, the kind of day that feels like a closing argument, gentle but final. Their checkout wasn't until noon, but the system notified me at 7:42 a.m. Front door opened, back door opened, garage motion detected. One by one, the pings came in like rain. Elaine left first. Her suitcase wheels clicked down the walkway like an apology, too embarrassed to speak. No message, no review, just a quiet departure. The door closed behind her the way goodbyes rarely do, softly, with no echo. Rachel followed. Jamie clutched his drawing, the one with all the stick figures under the sun. I saw it later, tucked into the guestbook. He had added a label beneath the sun in wobbly handwriting. Aunt Harper's house. She didn't erase it. She didn't cross it out. She just left it. Denise didn't slam a single door. She didn't fold the sheets. She didn't clean the bathroom sink. Just left her room stripped bare, as if her presence had never landed fully anywhere. Caleb lingered. Old habits, I guess. He used to be the last to leave family dinners, waiting for someone to ask him to stay. No one did this time. And Lily? Lily had already gone. She never came back after Tuesday night. She left the key on the hallway table next to the framed photo. No note. Just a single flower pressed between the pages of the guestbook. Lavender. From the front yard. They didn't leave a group photo, didn't post on socials, didn't tag the Airbnb location. They checked out early, quietly, tightly, the same way they once cut me out of the picture with silence, pretending it was grace. By 10:05 a.m., the house was still again. I waited until evening to return. I didn't rush. When I opened the front door, the scent was familiar. Still eucalyptus, lavender, linen. Still me, but something else lingered now. Remorse, maybe, or realization. I moved through the rooms slowly, the same way I had staged them. The Lisbon photo was gone. I knew where it was. The towels had been used. All of them, even the one with my initials. The drawer was left slightly open, guestbook still inside. I flipped it open to Jamie's drawing and paused, then turned to the page before it. There, in Lily's handwriting, was one sentence. She never needed our presence, just for us to finally feel hers. No signature, but it didn't need one. I stood in the living room as the house breathed with me again. They hadn't taken anything, but they'd left something, and that was enough. Later, I poured a glass of wine, lit the candle in the bathroom, the one that hadn't been touched, vetiver and smoke. Then I sat by the window, the way Lily had, watched the evening settle. No celebration, no confrontation, just completion. That's how closure works sometimes. You don't kick down the door, you own the house. And when they finally walk in, all you have to do is let them feel the weight of what they never built. That's all for this story. I'll be back with another one. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing to the channel. It motivates me to create more content like this.